The Lekki toll gate plaza in Nigeria reopened today. The toll plaza was closed after the October 2020 #EndSARS protests against police brutality. The Lekki toll plaza served as a ground zero for the protesters. An attack by the Nigerian security agents on the unarmed protesters forced the closure of the two tolling plazas. A report by the Lagos State Judicial Panel in November 2021 proposed that the Lekki Toll Plaza be made a memorial site for the EndSARS protest and renaming the plaza as #EndSARS Tollgate. Well, for some reaction on the reopening of the Lekki Toll Plaza, we're now joined by Hassan Taiwo Soweto, who's a member of the Democratic Socialist Movement. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. How significant is the reopening of the Lekki Tollgate Plaza?
It feels like a slap on the face of Nigerians, especially young people who participated in the protest about a year and 6 months ago, and who continue to feel that justice has not been done. It feels like a slap. It also feels like a dishonor, to the victims of the police shooting on October 20, 2020. Many people feel that by refusing to grant justice to the victims, by refusing to implement the recommendation of the judicial panel, and going ahead to then reopen the toll gate, many people feel that demonstrates where the priority of the government lies. That is, the priority of the government is about profit instead of lives and justice, for people who are struggling for a more humane policing in Nigeria.
But are the two related? I mean, one is an economic thing, having a toll to pay for the roads and so on and so forth. The other is that, yes, there was a miscarriage of justice, there was a human rights issue that happened at a toll gate. It wasn't the toll gate itself that necessarily was the problem.
Well, there's an interconnection in both issues, because if you recall the report of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry, the Lekki concession company, which is in charge of collection of tolls at the toll gate, was indicted, by the panel of tampering with evidence and trying to also maneuver its way to prevent what really happened from coming to light. So from that point of view, you could see that the tolling agency was actually, in a way, involved in what happened on October 20, 2020. But of course, I completely agree with you that you can argue that there's a difference between the actual fact of tolling that express road as well as the youth struggle. But what has also happened since October 20, 2020 is that the protest of young people at that area has helped to bring out and expose a long a grievance of people in that area over, a long-standing grievance rather of people in that area over what they consider to be the injustice of tolling that part of the road. Don't forget that that road itself was not something that was built anew, by the private companies that is tolling it now. It was a road that has been in existence since the 1980s. It was actually built by the Latif Jakonde government with public funds. The road connects the Lekki and the Epe district of Lagos, and is a quite strategic expressway. It was built with public funds in the 1980s. And then around 2006, the civilian administration under Bola Ahmed Tinubu decided that they were going to concession the road, not for the purpose of rebuilding it anew, but for the purpose of upgrade and expansion in some areas. So that up till now, the road still remains a 49.5 kilometer road. But the paradox of the situation is that we are being treated to what you would call a rendition of a colonial slavery in Nigeria. If you remember colonialism or the period of slavery in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa, what usually happens is that the colonial masters, for every bit of infrastructures that they use the wealth of the colonies to provide, they still impose taxes on the people for the purpose of those public infrastructures, something which led to widespread protests in different parts of the continent, including in Nigeria. That is what we are seeing being replayed with the situation at the Lekki toll gate. But what is happening now is that a road that was built with public funds is handed over to private entities who simply did some patchwork to upgrade it for them to collect those for the next 30 years. So what has happened since October 2020 is that this protest of young people around police brutality has exposed that long-standing grievance. In any case, when the tolling was commenced, when the concession itself was implemented in 2008, it was not without public protest. Since 2008, communities in Lekki and Epayazis have been organizing protests against the tolling. And right from 2011, when the tolling was implemented, there have been different kinds of agitations. So what has happened now is that people are demanding that the government of Lagos State cannot continue, to deceive the people, because it is self-evident that Lagos State has the resources to provide public infrastructures. If Lagos is considered to be a country, it will be the 5th biggest economy in Africa. That's to tell you the huge resources that lies in the custody of the state, so that there's even no basis in the first instance, to have let out that expressway for private concessionaire. So the demand that the people are making is that public resources should be utilized for public infrastructures, and that the concessioning of that road to private developers is a fraudulent exercise that the people cannot accept. And that is what is at stake at the moment in the conversation.
All right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you don't mind Lekki Gate being opened as long as it's not operating as a toll, that there should be free movement in and out and on this road?
The expressway was never closed. Since the NSAS protest in October 2020, people have been applying the expressway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as if the expressway was closed. What was closed was the tolling infrastructure.
Right.
That was what was suspended. So that the state government is not actually doing anything new today. It's not as if they are reopening the expressway for public use. What they are doing today is to commence tolling, which means that every motorist that goes through the expressway would have to pay a certain sum of money, unlike what has been the case for the past one and a half years.
Has government been able to explain adequately what the tolls have been used for, if you're saying that they've done very little work?
There has been no accountability. There has been no accountability whatsoever. In fact, the entire budgeting process and revenue collection of Lagos State is often shrouded in secrecy. Lagos State is one of the most, opaque, states in Nigeria. Its financial dealings is never known to the public. And that's because the government is dominated by entrenched interest. Elements who are using the resources of the state for other uses other than public good. In fact, there is the rumor around the country today that the efforts to reopen and commence tolling on the road is not divorced from the fact that one of the major member of the elite in the state, who was the first governor of the state since the end of military rule in 1999, and I'm referring to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that is not divorced from the fact that he has a plan to contest for the presidency of Nigeria. And the toll collection is seen as part of the war chest for the capitalist elite in Lagos State and political leaders to utilize to fund campaigns, to fund parties and all of that. That is the rumor that is going around, and it doesn't appear that that rumor is false, because the reality is that up till now, there has been no accountability as to how the toll collection, the revenue generated is being spent. All the public knows is that that tolling would have to continue for as long as 30 years before Lagosians will be free from this kind of fraud. Okay, so again, listening to you, it sounds as if private players are being rewarded for supporting political ambitions. Exactly, that is what is happening. And it is all the more unacceptable because Nigeria is actually a country that is swimming in an ocean of wealth. The only reason why there is mass poverty and underdevelopment of public infrastructure is because of the fact that we have greedy capitalist ruling elite who prefer to utilize public resources to finance their profligate lifestyle instead of using it to better the lives of ordinary people. So that there is no reason whatsoever for any state in the Federation of Nigeria to, provide public infrastructures through the aid of public-private partnership, which is the ideological and philosophical basis upon which the Lekki toll gate, has been erected. And as an addition, there is no basis whatsoever, even for the Nigerian government as a whole, to be enmeshed in the kind of enormous public debt that the country is emerging today. Because when you ask the government of the day why Nigeria has this so much public debt, they claim that it is because of the need to finance public infrastructures. And usually, what they use as an evidence of that is the efforts to try and upgrade rail infrastructures across the country that we have seen over the past 6 years. But of course, as you yourself, you are aware of, just a few days ago, it was exposed, it was revealed that all of the investment on the rail infrastructure is actually for no other reason other than for the purpose of embezzlement. But when you saw what happened with the Kaduna train, which was hijacked by terrorists, only for the public to then become aware that there was a contract for a surveillance system which ought to have been approved in order to prevent that kind of attack taking place. And this was not approved by National Assembly. But that was not the end of the joke. It was then revealed only just yesterday that the only reason why that contract was not approved was because the current minister the current transportation minister, without undergoing the usual process of opening the contract for bidding, actually imposed a company which had no requisite knowledge or evidence of expertise in providing that kind of service, and imposed that kind of company on the National Assembly on the basis of the fact that they must approve the contract. When you look at this kind of example, and the number of lives that was lost just a few days ago, it tells you just how much, how terrible and greedy, and reckless is the capitalist elite in Nigeria. And that is why for socialists and activists like ourselves in Nigeria, that's why we are calling for an end to corruption, but most importantly, for an end to this capitalist economic system, which is what makes corruption, possible, and for the enthronement of a workers' and poor people's government based on socialist policies. Because we are very much confident that on the basis of a socialist economic and political approach to running this country, Nigeria will be able to have fast-track development and all-rounded development of not just public infrastructures, but also improvement in the lives of the common people. And that is what even the Lekki Expressway itself demonstrates. Like I said ab initio, the original expressway itself was built in the 1980s by the Latif Dakonde administration on the basis of public works through public funds. That's to tell you that there used to be a time in this country when government, including especially even at a sub-regional level, could actually use public funds to provide good infrastructures. But shortly after the military left Nigeria, in the era of the current capitalist civilian democracy, the sing-song is always about neoliberal economic measures, the need to collect loan, the need for private investors to be invited before the limited measure of infrastructural development can be possible. This has been the sing-song. And our own argument is that this is no way to ensure an harmonious development of Nigeria. And that is why we are where we are today. So, to round up everything, what we are saying is that tolling of the Lekki Expressway is an historical injustice against the people of Lagos and the people of Nigeria, and can no more be allowed. So it is not just an issue of the NSAS protest, even though it is intertwined. What we are saying is that there was no basis, even right from time, for the Lekki Expressway to have been concessioned to the Lekki Concession Company for the purpose of tolling. And we are demanding that tolling should not just be stopped henceforth, but most importantly, there must be accountability for all of the toll collections that has been collected over the past few years. We need to know how much of this money was actually entered into the pocket of the government, and how much of the money has been looted. And last but not the least, we are demanding that the Public Works Department of the Lagos State government should be refashioned and equipped so that subsequent road and infrastructural projects can be handled through public works program. We think through this way, it can be possible to ensure harmonious development instead of the kind of exploitation that we see going on across Lagos and across the country.
Hassan, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very, very much indeed for speaking so passionately about this issue and informing our public about some of the underlying issues behind this story. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's activist Hassan Taiwo Soweto, who's saying that they're not happy that Lekki Gate has restarted its tolling, saying the original sin was way back actually, and that this tolling hasn't been benefiting the people on the ground, but it's all shrouded in a blanket of corruption that needs to be addressed, but also that he felt it's an insult to the people that lost their lives at Lekki Gate in the #EndSARS that took place 2 years ago.